Stop dreaming, stop dreaming, stop dreaming, stop dreaming, stop dreaming, stop dreaming, stop dreaming.
Okay, Micah, so we met, was it 2 years ago now? I think almost 2 years ago in Belfast. And I remember this exercise you did with us where you had all these, you talked about the power of words, and then you had all these little tiled letters and stenciled letters, and you basically challenged us to come up with something powerful with, I think, just 2 words. It was along those lines. And I remember just sitting there going, oh my goodness, how can 2 words produce such emotion, really? Because I think I came up with 2 words that were like stop, think, and which for me spoke quite a bit into my own life in that season. But then seeing the work that you've done, you have a way with words. How did this develop in you? Was this something that just kind of popped in your head and you thought, oh, love words, let's just go with it? Or tell us your story.
Yeah, I think it's a number of things, isn't it? It always is. It's lots of different things that have come together. I think as a kid, I loved the Proverbs. Out of anything in the Bible that I was ever to read, it was the Proverbs. Maybe because I had a really short attention span. I'm not a reader. I do read, a book can last me a long time in terms of, and most of the books that I read, I kind of just get halfway through. But there's plenty in there. But the Proverbs were just like this short, pithy, to the point captions. And yeah, I don't know how it developed into something more, to something that I just kept working with. There was no plan about it. There was no dream originally when I was starting out. I just kind of bumbled along. And it was really only in the last few years, I'm now 44, so only in the last few years I looked back and gone, oh, I'm kind of doing something here. It's something in the public space. I kind of use words quite a bit. It's something to do with the advertising space, and something just started to come together. Never really had anything to talk about, but I was always productive. I was always making something, always doing something. And I'd make these little cards, and it just had a proverb on it and a picture. Partly because, you grow up in church and see a picture of a shepherd and a hill, and me growing up in a city, it made no sense to me, so I kind of just played with it a little bit. I was interested in club culture, so I kind of wanted to maybe bridge that space, and also recognizing that wisdom literature would only really be found in the universities and the libraries and the religious institutions, but all this other language that was very exciting that I saw, which I was drawn to, MTV, and it was adverts, short proverbs, effectively.
Yeah.
And again, I didn't really piece it together at the time. It's only looking back, but it was kind of like just merging those spaces together. And it is what it is now. Yeah.
So you've started this campaign called Selling Virtues. Tell us a bit about that.
Well, yeah, it was a project that was due to start just, well, the year the pandemic hit. I'm raising funds to make it happen. And it is effectively, I wanted to use the tools of the advertising industry to promote virtues rather than a product. So just maybe a way of life, a way of living that could be beneficial to individuals and communities together. But yeah, using the skills of those in the industry, because there's clever people there, creative people there. And what I wanted to do was also bring in a philosopher, a sociologist, a psychologist, and ask them what we needed to live well, and see what they had to say. And no doubt it would kind of cross lines with, faith with somewhere or another in terms of it. It might be like to laugh, it might be community, it might be, who knows what they'd come up with. But in contrast to what advertising tells us, what do we need to live well? And so I brought in 3 thinkers, and I wanted them to let us know. And then I was going to go to 3 advertising agencies and ask them to effectively turn the thinkers' thoughts into a little ad campaign, and then find the funds to put that on the streets of the cities in the UK. And alongside that, I wanted to have a panel event where we bring the thinkers and the advertising people together, and rather than have them opposed, we'd sit them, together in their teams, and discuss advertising and it's, if there's anything we can do to make things better in that industry, to be more responsible. I'm not entirely sure if it's possible. Alan de Botton thinks it's possible to sell and to and to bring well-being to people. But for me personally, I'm not so sure. But it's a debate that's there, and it could just bring a conversation together to go, hey, look, recognize all these things that we see all the time. Does it have an impact? And I'm sure it does, given how we live, and what we buy. It's all there.
I mean, up until recently, until the Euros, really, the one that stood out for me, "You Are Enough," that was on the wall of the St. Peter's House in the Manchester University District. That was very simple yet so powerful. And I've seen others of your installations that are just like that exercise you had us do with just 2 words. How does that come about? It seems simple. You are enough, and yet the power of it, the coloring as well. Some of the ways you use color. How does that creative process just kind of churn in your mind? It's just
it'll be usually through reading, or sometimes live, sometimes conversations, and sometimes through reading or watching something, and it's almost as if someone else has said it and I've just pieced it together. Or I've I might read something. I love Walter Brueggemann and some of the things he talks about, and so he might have a phrase. I'm reading this one, that's why I keep looking that way, which is a Gospel of Hope. He wrote something, and I just was like, oh wow, and I just took out all the extra words, and we ended up with like 4 words, and it just became really quick and meaty. And part of the process is in advertising, they recognize that if you're on a bus or a car going past an advert, they know you've got maybe 3 seconds and about 7 words to kind of, you got 3 seconds and you passed it. So that's about 7 words. So if you want to send a message to somebody, you've got that long. So part of it, maybe that's my advertising courses has come into play, along with the proverbs. And so, I think it's just a matter of condensing sometimes somebody else's thoughts into something just really quick and punchy. The You Are Enough piece came from a TED talk by Brené Brown, and she did a piece on vulnerability, and at the end I think she had a necklace, or it was drawn on, it was an image that was drawn on that was right at the end. It was the last piece, and it said, "I am enough." And I was like, oh wow, that's cool. And then obviously I've taken the same thing but turned it into you as a kind of like a gift speaking out from the city, from high, in this giant. And then the colors, the words try to make it a little bit funky. There is, color psychology. Yellow is kind of has like inspiration or hope, depends how you use them. So all those things kind of like just gets pieced together, and just me bumbling along and seeing what works, and making mistakes and being okay. Publish stuff with spelling mistakes, and maybe I've done that too small in the past, but I think it's all come about. The success that I think that I have, Wembley is huge. It's it takes me back thinking about it. But I think it's just come through constant productivity. It's not necessarily about quality or quantity, but just being productive with the gift that's there to give something out. A long time ago, I did meet a lady in the Creative Quarter in Manchester, and she had poetry in bag, and she'd give this stuff out to people left, right, and centre. And that was the first time I met someone that kind of shared her soul in many ways, or there might be gifts to people. She's like, this one's for you and that one's for you. I was like, wow, I could do that. So I think that helped be the start of it. And again, they were like this size business card. I do 50, print them out on my printer at home. Cheerful look brings joy to the heart, something like that. And cut it out, drop a few off in a record store, give a few to friends. And I just carried on.
That's awesome. So I'll your website, Selling Virtues, you're looking for funding still. So I'll let I'll put up the gang can see right now website and all. You just mentioned Wembley. I mean, we were actually quite taken here in New Zealand about, which is kind of funny. I'm a big football fan. I'm Italian, and heritage and all of that. So for me, football's just part of life. But seeing, how many Kiwis in particular were just so enthralled by Euro 2020 in 2021, not realizing that actually a lot of the scenes that we're seeing on TV outside of Wembley in particular, a lot of that advertising, which, those words that were popping up, you did them. tell us about how that came about and your work with Wembley Park in putting up, some really cool stuff.
Yeah, well, interestingly enough, you mentioned the "You Are Enough" piece, and which it didn't start as a giant banner. It started as a sticker. I just made a sticker. I maybe made 1,000 of them, and there's a distribution pack around the student area. So I'll pay for them to be put in, and then they'll just go out, or I'll stick them on the odd lamppost here and there. And I had a friend that I'd done some work with who was a minister of a church. I'd worked with him on a Sabbath series, and he saw the "You Are Enough" stickers, and he's like, "I really like those stickers." And I've moved to this place at St. Peter's, and it's got this giant wall, and we've got this space on the side, and we've got this space on this side. And what do you reckon we should do? And we stood there and looked at it, and I said, "Why don't you just stick it up there?" He went, "Where?" I went, "Just the whole wall." And he was like, "Okay." And he went ahead and did it. He found the money and got this massive banner placed up there. Maybe, I don't know, 6 months later, a year later, somebody went into that place for a meeting, came out, saw my name on it, rang me up, said, "Hey, Micah, I've got a little shop in Wembley, and I'd love to put some of your prints in there. Would you be up for it?" So it's like, yeah, okay. Sent them down. It wasn't a massive earner, £20 here, £20 another month. So, but they were there, I've got a bit of work in, around Wembley. There's a little shop, and they were in there. And outside the shop, there was some boulders, and he was thinking about getting some artwork put on the boulders. And so he talked to another guy, and they talked together, and then he talked to me, and they said, "Can you do something with this?" And I ended up chatting to this other chap, and I was like, "Oh, you're the manager of the shop as well?" And he says, "Oh no, I look after everything at Wembley Park, everything around the stadium in the arts. That's me." I was like, "Oh, okay. If you ever have anything else, throw me in the pool and I'll pitch. If you ever do anything like that." He was like, "Okay, yeah, brilliant. I like your stuff. I'll do that." Maybe another 3, 4, 5, 6 months later, I get an email through, "Would you like to pitch for this?" So I was like, "Okay, here's some ideas." And the theme was against the odds. That was the theme I was given. That was the theme that they wanted to go with. And in my thinking, I suppose this is where the creative practice and process comes back into play. I'm thinking, what do we need? What's good for a people sat in capitalist consumer culture? The games are good. Yeah, it's a sport. Everyone enjoys it. But how do we make it from being siloed, from being individualistic, to something else? We were coming out of COVID. They wanted it to be coming out of COVID, and it's against the odds. How can we kind of do that? And I don't know. I got the theme of togetherness had to underlie every piece that I did, because together we can rally against the odds, whether it's in health, sport, whatever it might be. And that was, so where that came from, I don't know. Maybe the thinking, maybe some of the books, maybe other people. And sure enough, yeah, we did the steps: power in unity, strength in numbers, community like never before, and several others. But yeah, just a little process of, conversations and people and
just all
being productive.
Yeah, that's amazing. So, Mikey, I've kind of given you a background of our own community, our own church community. I'm going to put you on the spot.
Ha.
If you had just a few words to say to our church community here in New Zealand, you've seen the spaces we have. You've seen kind of quickly the position that we're in. What would, off the top of your head, what would you say to us? Some kind
Stalling.
You go for it.
No, I'm only kidding. Do you know what? I'm thinking a lot lately around my work in the past has gone down a few different methods, from the positive proverbs to then critique. I've done a bunch of work around critiquing capitalism, consumerism, and then this stuff again, and they're all okay and have their place, and they're all needed. But I'm trying to figure at the moment if there's a way to spot the positives that are there. The critique's handy, but also if it's all critique, then part of this I've got from a parenting book by Noelle Janice Norton, an American lady. I think she's actually based. I spoke to her not long ago, and she said, "Oh, I live near Wembley." So she, I said, "Well, your work's inspired the work that's there." But she talks about encouraging the behaviour that you want to see, and so I practiced this with my children, and it was really hard for me to go against the grain. It was counterintuitive. What I wanted to do was tell my children that they should share because of X, Y, and Z. That if they did, this would come back to you. That it would benefit you and it would benefit the people around you. And I was telling them like this at a moment where they hadn't shared, and I'm trying to explain to them, and I'm getting furious with them that they don't share, and it'd be good for them. So what's happening there is that they are getting scolded. They are recognizing themselves as a person that doesn't share, because every time they don't, I mention it. So they start to build this picture of themselves, as we do. That's how we grow. And this teaching practice was kind of, don't mention it when you see that. Just leave it to one side. When you see what you want to see, like they share, then praise them. But no superlatives. Just describe what you see, because a lot of their practice is, the children's practice is to gain attention, which they crave and deserve. And so I switched it round, and on this one occasion when I was just starting doing this, my son just gave something to his sister, and I was like, "Solomon, you just shared with your sister." And he bolted up, ran to his mum and went, "Mummy, I just shared." And I was like, wow. And we've continued on. So I just think it's got a healthy place to be able to look for the positives and go, you are enough. You've got this in you. And rather than pointing out the negative, going, you need to change this. Because we've heard that all our lives, and if it worked, we'd know about it, and it seems not to. So the community like never before kind of came from that. So I suppose that would be your role would be looking and trusting people to just trusting people with themselves, I guess, as well. And that's another thing that I've been trying to practice with my children is teaching them to trust themselves to make decisions, and rather than just them always expecting me. So there's a period where my daughter is going through a different stage of sleep. So up until now, this is the bedtime, and she'd go off and everything was cool. And then the bedtime got a little bit later, and then she'd go off and it was cool. And it got to a stage where she just couldn't get off, really. And we'd done it for a bit where I was like, "Oh no, you need to go back to bed because it's bedtime, and we've done this for this many years." And now she's a teenager, but she's just not going to sleep. So I was like, "Do you know what? Just go and read for a bit." "How long do I read for?" "Oh, I don't know. I trust you. You read for as long as you want. Listen to your body. Turn the light off when you're ready." And I'd read some Richard Rohr, and he talked about we've been telling people what to believe, but not how to believe, and I gained a lot from that, and tried to put that into practice. So I think all of these different things come into my work, as well as my life, as well as my parenting, and everything's all flowing together. So I think, you're looking for what is the positives there and praise it, maybe. That was a long-winded, pithy, short statement, wasn't it?
That's amazing. I think it's one of the biggest problems we're facing as a church, isn't it? Or as kind of a faith-believing community, that we feel almost the necessity to tell people what they're doing wrong, and direct them, usually through critique rather than through, encouragement or empowerment. And it's almost like we don't trust the empowerment process. And everything's changing around us. I mean, even the workforce right now is turning into a strengths-based, empowerment-based. We don't do, personnel evaluations as we used to do in the past. Now it's more of a, let's have a coffee and let's use executive coaching. And all these things have taken over because of the empowerment culture is actually showing that people are growing faster that way. They're owning, their environment, who they are and where they're at. And I think as Christians, we're kind of lagging behind on that quite a lot. We did a series, we were doing a series on Exodus, and one of our guys that preached a few weeks ago was just telling our church, that, the law in the Old Testament, the 10 Commandments, wasn't endemic solely to the Israelites. I mean, it was there before them. It was something that the ancient world had embraced. They all honored their mother and father. They all felt that murder was a bad thing. They all honored their gods that they did. So there was this kind of underlying moral character that God had instilled in people. We didn't just own it exclusively, that then we would then impart on people exclusively. That each and every one of us had this God particle within us. And it was just kind of lighting that little fire within them to allow them to embrace that, and rather than kind of dictating it. So I think it's absolutely powerful what you're saying. So thanks for sharing.
Yeah, on that, one of the phrases that is at Wembley, it's still up. What date are we on? Still up for maybe another 5 days or so. So it was there for some of the Premier League games. Well, the opener was there. But there's a phrase there which is "you, me, everybody," and someone told me they did a sermon on it, and they said that someone was asking where's the kingdom of heaven, and he effectively said it's already within you. And it's been kind of like lost in translation a little bit, going back to the original Greek, whatever it might be. And so I just love that. It opens up, like you say, there's a little bit of God in everybody, and whatever faith, or none, I believe there's something there. And so, like, I have a little mantra with my daughter, and in the evening at bedtime, I'll ask her, where's the kingdom of heaven? And she'll say, in you, me, and everybody. And she'll ask me, and I'll answer the same thing. And so that just made it there, But on its own, without knowing the backstory, just you, me, and everybody has a real inclusivity about it. It's just like you, me, and everybody. So yeah, sweet little thing.
Cool. Hey, really appreciate your time, mate. Thanks for taking time out in your day. I think it's nighttime there, and you want to be with the fam and all, but really appreciate you taking the time out and sharing with us. It was great hanging with you, mate.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, no probs, and we'll work it out once we get this COVID. I don't know if we'll get COVID ever out of the way, but once they open up the borders and stuff down here, we'd love to have you down and maybe spend some time with us and take a look at some of our empty spaces and how we can fill them with really encouraging, empowering words for our community. That'd be great.
Nice. That'd be brilliant.
Thanks, mate.